In the start of this movie, we are shown a family who had come to the Caribbean Sea to celebrate their son Ben's growing years. Everything was going smoothly. Julianne, meanwhile, jumped into the sea for a swim, while Ben and his dad, Tom, were busy fishing. Suddenly, Julianne felt as though a huge object was circling around her while she was swimming. When she stopped to look, the sea seemed perfectly normal. But then, something abruptly pulled her underwater. At the same moment, the boat's instruments started giving danger signals, but Ben and Tom ignored them as they were focused on fishing. Struggling to stay afloat, Julianne desperately called out for Tom's help, but no one seemed to notice her. At this point, she began to feel like the water was pulling her back, and soon she got caught in a strong current. Fortunately, Tom finally noticed her and immediately jumped into the water to save her. Ben, too, quickly turned on the boat's engine and brought it closer to both of them. Tom managed to save Julianne from drowning, and with Ben and Casey's help, they pulled both of them back onto the boat. Once they were safely back on board, Tom angrily asked Casey, "Where was your attention? We had made it clear that anyone who goes for a swim must be watched. Why didn't you pay attention? What if your mom had died feeling guilty?" Casey apologized, and everyone tried to forget the incident as they celebrated Ben's birthday that night. At the same time, Casey's boyfriend called and mentioned that a terrible storm was approaching the city. Casey got a little worried after hearing this, realizing they were not in a safe location. She went to inform her mom and dad about it, and they all decided to check their safety measures. While doing so, they noticed that eels and sharks were circling their yacht. According to Tom, this usually happens before a storm, as these creatures struggle to navigate the waves. Now aware of the coming storm, they prepared themselves to face it. But before they could deal with the storm, they had to fend off the sharks. Suddenly, there was a jolt that shook the boat. Tom went into the water to check and found that one of the yacht's rudders was severely damaged, most likely by a shark. By the time he got back on the boat, he was badly injured. Julianne rushed to tend to his wounds. Julianne starts stitching the wound, and Tom explains the situation to everyone. Due to the damage caused by the shark attack, they couldn't move forward. The safest option was to call for help, but their signals had gone out, and even the boat's radio wasn't picking up anything. In this difficult situation, Tom began checking their supplies. They had only 4 days worth of drinking water and little else. However, Tom was somewhat relieved because they were on a shipping route, where ships frequently pass by, and someone might notice them. While they were discussing this, a loud noise suddenly caught their attention from outside. They went out to check. They saw a meteor about to crash into the ground, heading straight toward their ship. In a hurry, Tom tried to start the boat's engine to move it out of the way, knowing full well that doing so could destroy the ship. And that's exactly what happened. The boat's engine failed, and the ship was wrecked. From a distance, another meteor was approaching. With no other option, they quickly moved to the lower deck and put on life jackets. Just then, they heard a loud crash, and everything went black. When they regained consciousness, they were still alive. Although they were injured, what shocked them the most was that, despite a huge hole in the ship, there was no water inside. Tom and Ben stepped outside and saw that their ship had drifted onto a rocky, desert-like area. Everything around them had changed. Where there was once water, there was now just dry, cracked earth. Tom quickly pulled out a compass to check their direction. He discovered that something was wrong with the land. Its magnetic poles had shifted. The North Pole had moved to the south, and the South Pole to the north. The ocean water had shifted to the areas where there used to be deserts, and the ocean had turned into a desert. Tom shared another disturbing realization during this process. Humanity may have perished. The shock of this news was too much for Casey to handle. She locked herself in a cabin and stopped talking to anyone. Julianne started gathering food for her child, while Ben released his birthday balloons into the sky, hoping that if anyone else had survived, they would come to help. Meanwhile, Tom tried to use the radio to contact someone, hoping to establish any form of communication. Tom didn't expect any response, but to his surprise, he got one. It was from a captain who was in a small submarine. The captain knew about the shifting of the sea as well, as he had survived the catastrophe just like Tom's family, thanks to being in the submarine. The captain informed Tom that the Earth's poles, which had shifted, would return to their original positions in about a week. When that happens, the sea will return to its place, but the waves will be extremely dangerous. So, the captain advised Tom to find a high place to go, as their chances of survival would be much higher there. Upon hearing this, Julianne immediately told the kids to start packing. Tom then asked the captain if it was possible for him to take their kids on the submarine since the chances of survival inside it were better. The captain wanted to help but explained that his submarine was too small designed for just one person. There was room for only one more. Tom pleaded with the captain, begging him to somehow accommodate both kids. In exchange, Tom promised to help the captain in any way he could. The captain finally agreed to take the kids. Tom estimated the submarine's location and told Julianne that they could reach it in 2 days before the sea returned and the waves became deadly. The next morning, the family was ready for their journey when Tom noticed a strange man approaching from a distance. Accompanied by his dog, Tom saw that the man was injured and offered him some water. But instead of thanking him, the man attacked Tom after drinking the water. From a distance, Julianne saw the man plunge a dagger into Tom, killing him. Though she couldn't save her husband, Julianne rushed to the boat to protect her children. She warned them about the danger and hid both kids in the cabin. She handed Casey a flare gun, instructing her to only use it if absolutely necessary. As she was explaining this, the killer made his way into the boat and approached their room. To escape, Julianne quickly hid in the bathroom and started tending to her wounds. Meanwhile, the killer began searching the yacht. As soon as the killer found some food, he devoured it quickly, making it clear that he hadn't eaten in days. After eating, when he went to kill Julianne, he found that the cabin was empty, even though he had heard sounds coming from there. In reality, Julianne had escaped through a hole in the boat. Unfortunately for her, the killer's dog spotted her and began barking. To silence the dog, Julianne killed it and hid beneath the boat. She would have gone unnoticed, but when the killer saw his dead dog, he realized Julianne was outside the boat. As the killer stepped off the boat to catch her, Julianne, using a broken glass panel, sneaked back into the boat. Unfortunately, it wasn't long before she was caught by the killer. He grabbed her by the hair and began torturing her, choking her. Desperate to save herself, Julianne fought back fiercely. Casey, watching everything from the cabin, saw this as the perfect moment to use the flare gun. She fired it, but while it didn't do much damage to the man, it did cause the yacht to start moving. Seizing the opportunity, Julianne quickly grabbed both her kids and made her way off the yacht. As they were escaping, the killer attacked Julianne again. This time, she kicked him away and managed to free herself. Once outside, Casey and Ben saw their dad's dead body and broke down in tears. They hadn't expected this horror to unfold. Ben blamed himself, thinking that if he hadn't released the colorful balloons, the killer wouldn't have found them. Julianne, too, was crying over her husband's body when she noticed the killer emerging from the yacht. Staying there would have been foolish, so she grabbed her kids and ran. Exhausted from running, they stopped behind a hill to catch their breath, thinking the killer might have given up. Ben continued to cry, and Casey comforted him, offering a little water. But Ben refused to drink it. While they were talking, Julianne saw that the killer was still following them. The three of them quickly started running again. Although they were tired, every time they looked back, the killer was right behind them. They didn't stop running, trying to find a safe place to escape. They reached a place where the water was poisonous, and anything could happen to them here. Despite the danger, Julianne ordered her children to move forward. As soon as they left the area, Ben's condition worsened, and Julianne realized he was severely dehydrated. They had only a few drops of water left, which she gave to Ben, but it wasn't enough. At this point, Casey completely lost hope. She no longer believed they would survive and had already accepted their fate. She tried convincing the others to do the same. However, Julianne encouraged her, saying, "Do exactly as I say. We will keep moving forward, and I know I can save you." On Julianne's insistence, Casey and Ben started walking again. A short distance later, they saw a plane which had crashed years ago into the ocean. They hid inside the wreckage of the plane, and Julianne took a final look at a family photo she had taken the night before. As they gazed at the photo, they all remembered Tom. It was already late, and they were exhausted. Casey and Ben fell asleep while Julianne, restless, got up and stepped outside the plane. She saw that even in the darkness of the night, the killer hadn't stopped following them. He had spotted her too. Pretending to be asleep, Julianne waited for the killer to get close. Then, suddenly she sprang up and attacked him, stabbing him to death. Finally, the threat was gone and Julianne could sleep in peace. When they woke up the next morning, they found the killer's body in terrible condition, which made them realize how dangerous the barren ocean had become. Nonetheless, they still had to reach the place where the captain was waiting. As Julianne was looking at the map to plan their route, Ben became incredibly thirsty. Ignoring Julianne's warnings, he went to a nearby pond to drink water. This pond, however, was poisonous. Ben was too thirsty to care, and Julianne had to pull his head out of the water forcibly. Drinking the toxic water made Ben ill. Julianne and Casey quickly built a shelter for him. They had barely rested for a short while when Julianne began hearing strange noises. Stepping outside, she saw that a swarm of crabs was moving towards them. In a panic, they started running again. While fleeing, they spotted a large ship, a cargo ship with many containers. Inside those containers, some people had set up camp. Upon seeing the three of them, the people inside the containers, they locked themselves inside, and Julianne desperately banged on the door, pleading for help. A massive storm of crabs was closing in on them. To escape, Ben and Casey climbed to the top of the container, and Julianne started to climb as well. But before she could make it, one of the crabs had bitten her. Despite the pain, Julianne managed to shake it off and pull herself up. She used her scarf to tie up her injured leg, but soon after she passed out from exhaustion. Ben and Casey noticed that the crabs had already eaten through the container and invaded the space, attacking the people inside. The ones who had weapons tried to fight off the crabs, but no matter how many they killed, more kept coming. When morning came, Julianne regained consciousness and realized her children were not with her. Panic set in as she feared they might be dead in this dangerous place. She began to cry in terror, thinking she had lost them. But then, in the distance, she saw Casey and Ben returning. They had gone looking for food and weapons, and the crabs were no longer in sight, having moved elsewhere. Seeing them safe, Julianne felt a surge of relief. She then tended to her crab bites while Ben inspected the weapons he had gathered. Julianne used her radio to contact the captain, who informed her that he had also been attacked by sea creatures. He was severely wounded and could no longer help them. Moreover, he warned her that the ocean would soon return to its original position, which was why all the creatures had come back. They didn't even know which direction to go in to reach the submarine, because their map had gotten ruined during all the chaos. The captain fired a flare, and Ben spotted the direction. They began hurrying toward the submarine. In the distance, they finally saw the small yellow submarine, but it seemed almost impossible to reach. To get to it, they would have to cross over toxic waste, which could make them gravely ill. Casey began to lose faith in Julianne's promise to save her children. They argued, and Julianne sternly told Casey to keep moving forward. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse, their luck ran out again. As they moved through the mountains, a landslide started. Julianne, who was at the back, saw a massive boulder fall in front of her. She got stuck there, and Casey didn't want to move ahead without her. But Julianne made her swear that no matter what, she must save her brother. Reluctantly, Casey carried her brother forward, and when they finally reached the submarine, they found no one there. They desperately banged on the door of the submarine. Then, suddenly, the captain appeared from behind, severely injured. He told them that he had no chance of survival and that the submarine could only hold 3 people. Hearing this, Casey turned back toward where her mom was stuck. At that moment, Julianne was using a gun to shoot the crabs coming toward her, but her bullets were almost gone. Just before another crab could attack her, Casey rushed to her and offered her a hand. With Casey's help, Julianne finally managed to escape, and they both ran back to the submarine. Without wasting any more time, they got inside the submarine. As they prepared to leave, a massive wave from the ocean approached. The wave struck their submarine, causing them to lose consciousness. When Julianne woke up, she was shocked to find that the submarine was no longer in the water. The giant wave had dragged their submarine to a sunken city. The condition of the city suggested that no one else had survived there. And with that, the story ended.